Hello and welcome to Expected Grass. We're here for the Game Week 4 special. I'm back after 3 weeks. It's been a long international break since I've seen my friend Simon at analytic_FPL on X, and I am, of course, FPL Nima. We're just excited to be back. Can't believe there's been an international break, 3 games in, but we're almost back to the real stuff. If you're watching England play tonight, um, yeah, I don't know what to say because I just can't get myself excited about the Nations League. It feels like a glorified friendly to me, but that's a different conversation. Today we're just gonna have a candid catch up. We've not talked to each other about what we're thinking to do for our Game Week 4 teams and how we felt Game Week 3 went, so we could keep all the reactions natural and ready for the show tonight. But yeah, good job hosting the last episode with our first guest, Fran Simon. Really enjoyed seeing you guys nerd it out, as you call it. But yeah,
Yeah,
how have you
thanks.
been? How's the break treating you?
Yeah, not bad, not bad. The break has been less of a break for me than you having your week off the pod last time. But I don't know, 3 games is kind of silly, isn't it? Like, it's normally like 3 or 4 games like every year, and every time it annoys me. You're just getting into the season, and you're just starting to get a bit of like who's good and who's bad, and like who's playing, and like get like into the FPL rhythm, and then yeah, boom, international break, 2 weeks off. But it's a lot more relaxing with an international break. Like I only realized this really. I probably realized this like most in the summer when I was actually just like I'm really operating at a lower level of stress when I don't have Leeds playing at the weekend than when I do for the other 9 months of the year.
That is I feel like I don't know about you, but other Leeds fans I know, I feel like Bamford took a few years of their life. I always liked him, but I don't know how you feel about Leeds this season. Are you optimistic about the season?
Yeah, I feel pretty good about the season. We have the best squad in the division by like a reasonable distance in terms of like player quality. So that is something. It's obviously not everything. It's not a guarantee, but I think we should do quite well. And I would just say that Bamford is an absolute goat. I love that guy so much.
Yeah, because I thought you might agree with me, but yeah, I don't know why some of the other fans I spoke to dislike him so much. I think perhaps it's the same reason one of the managers didn't like him, right? Like he's quite a accomplished polymath, as I call them. Plays violin, speaks French,
Yeah, that
went
was
to
Sean
private
Dyche,
school
wasn't it?
probably. Yeah, so
It's
Sean Dyche
the
really
man
didn't
of
like
the
him.
utter woke nonsense JPEG.
Yes. Oh man, I love me some Sean Dyche. Yeah, that is incredible stuff. But there is a crazy number of people watching live because this is the first week we're actually also streaming to X. I found out you can stream to a blue tick account just recently. So there's like over 65 people here live, I think mainly from X. But if you are on YouTube, do support us in our journey to 200 subscribers. I think we were about 23 away before we went live. So we'd really appreciate your support. We're going to do this every week, mainly on a Tuesday, also bring in guests and just have a casual chat, really, like amongst friends, as if we were like at an FPL meetup, really, in a pub watching a match and just chat about our teams leading up to deadline, right? There's nothing kind of beyond that. I don't think we're kind of planning to give people advice, but more just have real candid conversations and maybe laugh at each other's teams along the way, right?
Yeah, laughing at each other's teams is probably the only guarantee, isn't it?
That is definitely a guarantee after what happened to my team a few weeks ago. So on that note, how did Game Week 3 go for you? I suppose I think that's maybe a good place to start. I know you were flying high at the beginning, right? You had the Hollanders team. How's that kind of holding up for you? Because you obviously captain Salah in Game Week 1 when maybe Haaland owners captained Isaac, and
Yeah,
then I'm assuming you also still captain Salah last week as well, not like
yeah,
Saka or
yeah.
something.
In
Okay,
2 and 3, yeah. So
nice.
yeah, it was a funny game week, wasn't it, in terms of like the narrative of it? Because obviously Haaland played first and scored the hat trick, and then you had all these tweets being like, if you don't have Haaland, why do you even play the game? Blah blah blah. And then Salah just turns up on Sunday and like drops 14 points, and it's kind of a wash, which is fun. Obviously, the people we were with both absolutely like smashed this week. For me, it was kind of average. It was 71 points, which I think was a bit below like where a lot of people were. The double Arsenal defense didn't come in, although I got a João Pedro goal, so that out of the other side of that, so that was pretty nice. Otherwise, yeah, like not too bad. Eze got 10 points after bringing him in when everyone else, well, not everyone else, a lot of engaged managers brought him in, but it was very highly sold in week 3. So that was nice. It wasn't really the fixture I was targeting. It was more looking a bit beyond this week. So it's nice to get the 10 points early on. Otherwise, yeah, just pretty chill. Nothing really to write home about 71. I'm just about 1 million or so in the overall rank at the moment. Maybe just outside. Oh no, just inside. I don't know. I'm not really bothered about rank after game week 3, but start of the season's been kind of fine. Team looks good. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I had the same number of points. Obviously, I have Holland instead of Salah, so that is quite interesting. I have like no Arsenal defense. I don't have City defense. I think maybe you have one. No, okay.
No.
So yeah, our teams are maybe a bit different. My biggest letdowns really were I've put a lot of faith in Muniz. That's not quite worked out yet, but I'm still going to hold on. A few home games coming up in a row, back to back. Rogers, obviously, everyone piled in. Still not convinced that like you're going to see many attacking returns throughout the season, but at 5 million currently playing with the expected minutes he is, feels like a decent enough enabler. So yeah, I'm actually probably like double your rank. I think I'm sitting around 2 million, 2.1 million. Similar to you, I don't really concern myself with rank till about, I'd say for me, 10 weeks in. I start to
Yeah,
kind of take
we
a
were
bit
talking
more
about this
notice.
last year, weren't we, at the meets?
Yeah, that's true. We did, didn't we? Because I think neither of us really care so much about the early rank. Like it's just so like it's also close, right? It's condensed. It's like
Yeah.
every 5 points is maybe a few 100,000. It's not really,
And
yeah, it's not
the
really
people who are at the
meaningful.
top now aren't going to be the people who are at the top at the end either.
There's a lot of chip usage, right?
Yeah, and just a lot of managers who aren't very good who've got lucky in 3 weeks. And like, if you get lucky in the first 3 weeks, you're right at the top of the overall rank. If you get lucky from game week 26 to 28, no one cares.
Yeah, true. In terms of there are some questions in the chat. I'll just shout out some of the people who've tuned in live as we keep going. Up to 145 concurrent live viewers. This is crazy, guys. If you are on X, do consider coming to the YouTube channel and subscribing to help us on our journey to 200. So we've got Jasper and Singh, evening, buddy. Thanks for tuning in live. Cal Abdullah Jamil, good to see you as well. They've transferred in Pedro. Assuming you mean João Pedro, so have I, but we'll talk about if we've done moves or what we've done in a second, Simon, as we wrap up Game Week 3 and move on to Game Week 4. But that's a little clue that I have moved early, unlike me. And yeah, guys, put your comments in the chat. We always star them so that we can do the Q&A at the end as well. So we will definitely get to all the questions as they come up, and we'll put them up on screen. This isn't a question. I'm just going to put it up now to talk about it. Jaskrin says, there are talks of contract extension for Bamford. So I think he's also pretty happy.
Yeah, I don't know if I would extend his contract right now, to be honest, because he's got, 2 years left on his deal, but he's also 30, 31. So by the time that deal expires, he's going to be 32, 33. And you're just extending until like his 33-4 age season. Doesn't seem like there's a great reason to do that.
No, I think I agree with you there. That's fair. In terms of going back to this, is there anything really on Game Week 3 that you felt you learned beyond the fact that obviously Haaland and Salah have the exact same number of points, 41 points each, and the early celebrations from the Haaland owners who said, how can you even play FPL without owning him and stuff? It was kind of short-lived, wasn't it, really?
Yeah, not really. I don't think we've learned that much that we didn't know, at least like after Game Week 2, for sure. There were like minutes, like reveals in terms of people getting like dropped. Maybe we're still a bit lower on Watkins because it's now 3 weeks with low mins. Obviously, after Game Week 1, we thought it might just be because of preseason, but it looks like Duran is going to be more competition. And then, no, I mean, FPL for me right now is very chill because I started with the Salah team. Part of the reason they did it is because it was the plan that needed fewer transfers, and so it just could go wrong if I picked the Haaland team and like wasn't able to get around. It's kind of worked out okay in the end for people who picked Haaland, like outside of if you have like Quansah, or it's only really Nkunku that's like dropped off. And then, so now I'm kind of on the team where people are moving to, and I gave up a bit of value in the first 3 weeks in order to like use fewer transfers. And so right now it's very chill. The
Nice
team,
place to be.
the team's in good shape, and I'm probably just going to roll my transfer through this week. To be honest, I'm considering one move. We can chat about it later, but yeah, I have 2 free transfers right now. I'm probably going to look to roll the next 2 weeks and then make some moves in 6.
Nice. Well, before we talk about the transfers and the transfers I've already kind of jumped on, I think I really want to touch on what you said about you didn't feel that we'd learned much more after Game Week 3 that we didn't learn in Game Week 2. To kind of go on to the wildcard topic, not just for wildcard 4, but in terms of timing of the wildcard in general, whether it's Game Week 6 or future weeks from there. The reason I bring this up is I saw this tweet from official FPL a couple of days ago, and they said that the number of active wildcards ahead of Game Week 4 was the 9th highest in FPL history. And I can only imagine that number will shoot up even more on Thursday, Friday, as people who've logged out and not logged in after a bad game week may come back by then. I'm sure about 1 million of them will quit and never log in again. So there's also that, which happens every year. But yeah, let's talk about that. What are your thoughts? It's obviously a lot of wildcards active. Well, I guess you say you've already got the team people are moving to, so you have no reason to wildcard. But do you feel that, because I like to think that I'm not normally someone who early wildcards, and the reason I'm asking this is if you felt that your team, you got everything wrong, like you felt that, my Game Week 1 thoughts were wrong, like you have the Kwanzaa, you have the Nkunku, you have the Barco, you don't have the players you want, right? It seems like, it is there to use, and I would argue that the wildcard isn't as powerful with the ability to roll the transfers as it was before, maybe. I don't know if you agree with that thought, firstly, and then secondly, how do you feel about the Game Week 4 window for people whose team wasn't messed up? Because I think people whose teams that were messed up, obviously, like, you should use it. It's there to fix your team when it's a mess. But for people whose team wasn't messed up, what are your thoughts? And like, why is this week so popular?
I think this week is so popular. It makes a lot of sense. There's a combo of a few things. There's people who planned to wildcard early before the season started, which I think was higher than it is in a usual season. There's the way that the kind of points have gone with Salah and Haaland both absolutely banging means that the people who are kind of freaking out and just want to get those 2 in because they've done all the points, your wildcard is really often the only option if you're on one or the other, because to squeeze your team structure to get both in is probably going to require more transfers than you have saved up. So that's going to increase the wildcard numbers. Obviously, there's a bit of just the player base is bigger as well. So that's why the numbers are going to be really high on FPL. So it kind of makes sense to me. In terms of whether I like wildcard 4, yeah, I think if you built your team for it, so let's say you went for like Newcastle and Fulham defenders in Game Week 1, so you could like hit Southampton and then 2 promoted teams on a defender rotation or something. Like you've juiced your team for what it's worth, and then you're going to wildcard out of it into like longer term picks. Makes sense. There's people who want to shift onto Haaland without using up all their free transfers. I think that has some value, and it makes sense. I think there's a lot of people trying to farm team value. This one makes a bit less sense to me, I have to say, because you're going to be able to farm team value whenever you wildcard. So you do get some additional weeks of it and maybe a little bit more, but I think people can overvalue that a little bit. Kind of makes sense to me. What do you think of wildcard 4?
I feel a bit seen there because the last one that you weren't as convinced by, the farming team value, I feel like that's what I've done so far with every single free transfer this season. So not with a wild card, but that's when my free transfers have
Yeah,
all
but
been
that's different. That's different though, because in a free transfer, because if you're going to make that move anyway, then going early versus late, I think it makes a lot of sense, because the downside of protecting your team value is pretty small. Whereas here, you're always going to get the opportunity to make somewhere between 500,000 and 1 million team value if you
whenever you do wild card,
if you wildcard in 8, or if you wildcard in 12.
There's always
so
that
counting
chance.
all of that money as like a reason to wildcard now, I think just is the overvaluing.
Yeah, no, that's fair. In terms of I'm trying to think. So normally I always wait till like deadline day. I remember when I looked at one of the sites last year, it said that the latest I made a transfer was 1 second before deadline it went through. So I've left it very late and risky in prior seasons. I wait for injury updates, pressers, team photos. I was
You have a lot
tanking
of
my
faith
team
in the
value.
servers, man.
But this is the thing, and because they do crash often, especially when there's a team leak, it is quite worrying. And I've kind of shocked myself this year. I think because I felt my team was so like undervalued last year. Like I remember I was playing this scout community tournament, SKLW, and one of the guys in my team, Andy Mack, his team value was like 4 million more than mine. And when we were wildcarding towards the end of the season, I just couldn't comprehend how that had happened and why he had like 10 million midfielders for my 6 million midfielders. I just couldn't get it. So I think this season going into it, I kind of made a conscious choice that in the early weeks, while I still have the wild card in my hand, I will move early. And one of my initial plans was, look, I'll just do my 2 transfers. I think I did them on the Sunday night of game week 3 before a 2-week break to catch like rises and prevent drops, with the mentality that if it all goes wrong in the international break, lots of injuries happen, I would be okay enough just wildcarding in game week 4 anyway.
Yep.
So I don't think I'm going to need to wildcard in game week 4, touch wood, unless some other weird, mysterious injuries show up in the coming days. But I'm still like unsure. And this is where I'm going to maybe move on to the moves I've made to see what you think, because I think you're going to call me points chasing massively.
Before we do that, though, what do you think? Tell me more about why you think the wildcard value is down, and like how you're thinking about when to play the wildcard.
Yeah, so I think the reason I think it's down is that personally, I always like used it if there was like a massive fixture swing. So for me, like I think I said this to you before, where I felt really in a wild card, you're probably only changing 5 of your starting 11. Yeah, you fix your second goalkeeper maybe, or yeah, now you know which 4 million defender plays or which fodder plays in the front 8. Yeah, there's a few tweaks you make, but a lot of them are players you're literally never going to see the light of day on the pitch. Like right now, I've had Barco for weeks. It makes zero difference to me whether he plays for another 4 months or not, right? He's gone. So I don't really care. I don't feel I ever need him with the 5 substitutions in the Premier League, and the players I have will get minutes even if they don't start. So with that in mind, I guess what I'm getting at is that I feel that if you had managed to roll up to 3, 4, 5 transfers, which is a new thing, and we couldn't do before, from my perspective, you can do what a wildcard was doing before, just without the kind of the trimmings or the icing on the cake and the fodder and the crap on your bench. Like, have you ever wildcarded where you've changed the ones you want, and then you're like, oh, I've only changed 6 or 7. Let me just change some random positions so it feels like I use my wildcard better. Let me change 10. Like, I think half of it is just useless changes, is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, there's definitely some low value ones, like your 7th and 8th and 9th transfer on a wildcard are not getting you anywhere near as much as the first 6. That's definitely true. I agree with you. I think it's definitely possible to be able to spend your transfers in a way that you couldn't before. Like getting to 3 like gets you a lot more routes than having 2. And so I agree with that. I think in order to do that, though, you have to not spend those transfers. So
Which I've absolutely failed, yeah.
Yeah. And so but you pay some cost for not using those transfers and saving them up instead, right?
Yeah, so I think for me, right, is I felt that there was stuff I wanted in my game week 1 team, and I changed it against my better judgment at the time. So I've kind of tried to fix those things. So that's where I've kind of ended up blowing them. But equally, I'm very happy with the team I have after using both my free transfers. So it's kind of like it didn't feel like, why would I wildcard? So my next question is, because we can roll, are the use of these 2 transfers, do we need to think about them differently? So have I jumped the gun? Because in prior years, if I didn't use one, I'd burn it, right? Whereas now, I could just yeah, maybe in the next game week or the next 2 game weeks, to give you a clue, I've gone for 2 players who have 2 home fixtures in a row versus like 2 players who don't, and have harder fixtures.
I love this tease.
Yeah, so with that in mind, I reckon over the next 2 game weeks, yeah, my expected points or expected value, there is a positive there. But had I not used them and gotten up to 3 and 4 transfers, could I have actually had a way bigger option going into game week 6? Because now maybe I'm actually forced into that wild card in game week 6. Whereas had I just rolled a bit, yeah, I wouldn't have had the main effective gain in the next 2 weeks. But overall, in the longer term, it could have been a way bigger game. So I've almost like shoehorned myself into the wild card by doing this.
Yeah, which is not too bad. Like if that wild card plan is looking like a good path for you, then part of that looking good is that you can make the short term moves. So then
that's fair. So I'm pot committed though in that sense, right? So like people, because I see everyone on the timelines like, oh my god, who would sell these players? Like, how could you? And I'm like, and they're telling me like, do you not want them in game week 6? And I'm like, well, yeah, like I'll have another 2 free transfers by then or a wild card. Like I think we always forget that like we get a free transfer every week. I don't understand this idea that you can't use your free transfers to target fixtures. I've always been a fixtures player. That I don't get that. I don't know what the criticism is.
It depends. So like in my head, I kind of have if I take a hit kind of at any point this season, like I've kind of fucked up. Because that could have been a transfer I didn't use in like game week 3.
And that could have been like my move I did, right? So in game week 2,
paying like -4 for it in like game week 31, and it does link up because you take the transfers through the wild card as well. So
that's what I'm getting at. Like, have I almost like undervalued what this is?
If you end up taking a -4 later in the season, you kind of should have just valued this transfer at 4 points.
I guess that's something we don't know, right? Like, so I like to use transfers as 4 points as well in terms of valuing them historically, but I don't know what to value them this year. I think this is why I started this conversation, because it was like, actually, have I like treated them like how they used to be, which is, oh, I've got 2. It wouldn't be unusual last season to use 2 to move the balance of my team or move money from one position to another. But this season, I didn't consider that had I got to 3, that might have prevented the wild card in 6. And like, there's so many follow-on implications and different paths to solve that just didn't exist in prior seasons. So I'm quite excited because I do hope it means we see more variety. I think we've already seen more variety than I'm used to. And it just feels like the pricing plus these new rules, it does feel a bit more fun than it has in a few years. I don't know if it's the same for you.
Yeah, definitely. And it should be a game that responds to skill more as well. Like it should be easier for players who are very, very good at the game to differentiate themselves from those who are not as good at the game with the new rules.
Yeah, with the new rules.
Because it's just much more complex, and you have a lot more strategic freedom.
I think one thing I would add is just thinking about it. I do think that it will also benefit the casuals eventually. So like I was talking about those million people who are probably not going to come back after the international breaks that had a bad start. That's always the case. Every international break, a few people disappear. But sometimes they eventually remember the game and do log in. And back in the day, they'd log in and have 2 transfers and a team with like 9 fires. Then they'd activate the wild card, not log in for another 6 weeks. And then the next time they do, there isn't a wild card this time. This time, every time they disappear for a month at a time, they're going to come back to 5 transfers and be able to very quickly clean up the team without hits. So I do feel that it's exciting because this new change not only benefits them, which people think that it doesn't because they think casuals just move super quickly. But trust me, they won't move quickly if they're not playing for a few months at a time. And I know friends like that. They come to the FPL meets. There's all types of players, casual all the way to super obsessed and engaged. And then it also benefits maybe people like us who really like the planning aspect of the game, like trying to look ahead, look for fixtures things, look for a time for an opportune wild card. So I do think it benefits both types of player, not just casuals, but also very engaged managers. And that again is quite exciting because I never believed in my life I'd see official FPL make a change that was positive and not to just dumb down the game and oversimplify it, because really they just want it to be a free marketing channel, if I'm honest, and to just drive people to watch the Premier League by playing this game. And they want to invest as little as they can to do anything to ever change it, hence the 8 years of 0 changes up until now.
I agree with you completely. Yeah, it's very good for those who forget their team. It's good for the people who are super engaged, and then there's kind of like bad for this like middle ground of people who manage to make a transfer every week but like don't actually really care about the game. And they're just gonna get rinsed compared to previous years from
Like
both.
they're gonna do well for 3-4 weeks while the casual's not logging in. Then every time the casual logs in, they just outdo them because they have like 5 moves versus their 1 every week. And they're probably still taking hits regardless. Because the
True.
friends I have who do this, they're taking -4s every week from the start of the season. So like it doesn't change whether there's an extra ability to roll or not. They're just gonna, these are like work colleagues and like more casual friend mini leagues. And obviously that's where I also started out. Like I remember my first year, I just thought that my mini league was the only ranking that existed. And I did take a hit every single week to just try and catch the people in that mini league. Like I didn't know any different.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I took a -24 in my first ever game week playing FPL. I had no fucking idea what was going on.
You remember, you know, the guy, my favorite is the ones who they come in game week 4 or 5 and they're like, so do I get like a chip every week? I've just used triple captain, free hit, wildcard, and bench boost. And I'm like, you know, you could have just like not used them back to back for 4 weeks in a row. And then they learn for the following season. So I do think there are some trials and tribulations in FPL, which we all love. Yeah, a couple more shout outs before we go on to, I think we talked about wildcard and value transfers. We'll talk about this week and how we feel about game week 4 for the second half of the session. But we've got FPL 4P. Hi there. Good to see you. Thank you for tuning in live, mate. We've got Reedy as well from the FPL Addicts pod. Good to see you, buddy. Sorry, I can't come on as a guest this week. I hope to come on soon, though. And maybe we can even get you on. So any of these comments that we want to answer, or do we save them till the end? Yeah, I think Kyle will answer your question in the Q&A, like about like benching decisions and stuff. Yeah, I think we'll come back to that.
This is all Q&A stuff, I think.
Yeah, we'll leave these. Yeah, Tiggy as well. Good to see you. Thank you for tuning in. We will also get to your question. Cool. All right. Well, there's 500 people now. I think there's like 10 on YouTube and like 490 on Twitter. So please, if you are watching on Twitter, do consider coming over to the channel, as I mentioned, and subscribing as well. But yeah, if you're watching on Twitter as well, let us know what you think, because this first time we're doing it on both Twitter and YouTube at the same time. If you're on YouTube, please do hit that like button if you enjoyed the episode. But yeah, let's go into this week then, and then we'll do the Q&A after. So
yeah, let's see these moves then. Okay, let me guess. I think you sold Saka.
Yep.
And you're going to get Salah.
Yep.
And then what have you done to fund it? Let's
is Isaac to Pedro.
Okay, yeah. That's decent.
And you know what's funny? Do you remember the only team you found pre-game week 1 that had my crap bench plus Haaland, Salah, and Trent was the one without Isaac? Do you remember? That was the only one that ran close to all the other Salah only or Haaland only drafts in the review model. It's funny how I've ended up back there. This is what I mean by I feel like, so you know what it is? I'm glad I had Isaac to start with, don't get me wrong. One thing to say is I'm someone who had Isaac and Gordon. So I think a lot of people who are selling Isaac, or people saying, I can't believe people are selling Isaac. I'm still holding Gordon and I have him for this fixture against Wolves. So like the alternative, and I'll tell you what my original plan was. So my original plan was always Isaac to Pedro, Gordon to Palmer in game week 4. That was literally my plan. So actually, it's not like I wouldn't like to think I knee-jerked. I'd like to think that I then just kind of looked at Arsenal's injuries, suspensions, their players playing 90 minutes in every single game of the international break while other teams pulled out all their players sick. And I kind of concluded, you know what? As a set of fixtures, 3 away games in a week, you know, with like people just kind of like blindsided, like, oh yeah, Saka does well against Spurs. Yeah, I know he does. But Salah has 2 home fixtures and he has fucking Spurs and City away. And he has a midweek game against Atlanta away. And he just played 290 minutes, probably, including tonight, for England as well. So I'm like, I think short term, I was kind of just trying to go for these 2 fixtures, basically, and then come back with that wild card or a free transfer back to Saka. I don't think I'll stick with the Salah Haaland double up long term. I don't think so, because I do still want Saka long term eventually. And I can't see a team that works with Haaland, Salah, and Saka long term for me. But yeah, that was kind of the big change, I guess I was trying to say, is I kind of pivoted from Gordon to Palmer to Saka to Salah instead. I decided, as good as Palmer is, as good as Chelsea is, I don't think their fixture is as good as they seem on paper either. And I think like Bournemouth away, for example, isn't that easy. famous last words. But
Chelsea have a tough game in 8, right?
yeah, let me check who they're playing game week 8.
It's-
So just having a quick look. So game week 8.
I think other than that, their fixtures are generally pretty good. I think your moves make sense though.
Oh, they have Liverpool away. Yeah.
Yeah, I think your moves make sense. I think Pedro is a more essential piece to have now, especially because the 4 and 5 fixtures are so good than Palmer is. Whereas I think Palmer, you probably want to try and get into your team at some point pretty soon, but yeah, it doesn't have to be now. And Palmer's just a very nice piece. The other move I might have considered, if you're thinking about, well, actually no, let's rewind. When are you thinking about wildcarding? So I guess it kind of affects how you think about these.
So I think there's certain players I'd be looking to move on quite quickly. So it depends how many of them I view as like a problem by game week 6. So I'm willing to give all of these guys in this team another 2 weeks now without injuries. So the players I'm most likely to shift are obviously like Parko, Hall, all these guys. Those two go without saying, but they're on the bench permanently for now. Smith Rowe, Muniz, Gordon, Jota, even Porro. Yeah, no. Hall and Barker go without saying though.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah. But the in terms of actual players that I will start, because Smith Rowe could rotate on occasionally, but the other two are never. But yeah, so overall, if I get to game week 6 and like, Gordon's not looking great, Newcastle are looking like they can't handle it, Fulham haven't quite done what I was expecting, Jota's maybe minutes are going down potentially at that point. If all those things all happen, then I think I'd be very quick to wildcard in game week 6 and then just try to keep those 2 free transfers and keep rolling and build up from there. So rather than get to game week 6 and use both transfers to get Saka back, then I want to actually wildcard, because then there's too many issues in this team. Because right now, the only players I'm truly happy with are Porro, who I've bought for Isaac. So yeah, so Pedro, Porro, not Pedro, João Pedro, Haaland, Salah, Rodgers, and Trent. That's pretty much, I'd say, the only players in my team of 15 I'm happy with.
Right.
When we get no, as in like they're like the ones that I have no concern of even thinking about moving. Everyone else is on the chopping block and will be monitored very carefully over the next 2 weeks of the international break. That's the main thing. But yeah, something here just felt off because I started with Saka. I was hoping to hold him. That's why I was looking at the Gordon to Palmer move. And would you believe it? I even considered a -4 to try and get Salah in for Gordon. So it would have been like Isaac to Pedro, Gordon to Salah, and then something like Muniz to Fodder. And I was do I really want to take a -4 for that? Or Trent to Robertson. Yeah. So I was like, do I really want? But a lot of it was dictated by price. I'm not going to lie. So going back to the very start of this episode, after what happened to my team value last year, I was kind of looking at it like, okay, so Salah's going to rise. Pedro's going to rise. Pedro might rise again before deadline, so twice. The week before, as you remember, and Nkunku's dropped like a brick since I sold him. So it's like, I just want to be on the right side of team value. And I think maybe one thing in the way I play, and I was going to ask you about this. I think about effective ownership more than most people. I know you probably don't care for it. You'd rather look at like what you expect your players to do points wise, not the mass ownership. But maybe for captaincy, it's a consideration as well. But overall, I find, and if you look at my game week history week by week every season, I don't think I really go down massively ever. Like I kind of stagnate for weeks or months at a time at one rank bracket. And then eventually, like my 2 or 3 weird differentials, like a Muniz, Gordon, and Consa here, maybe they get me the points and I actually get above the field. But most weeks, I kind of just stay at the same rank. Like, I don't know if you remember, there was a season where I was between like, I think 100 and 200K for like 17 weeks. And then like at the end, I just crack into the top 100K. This season so far, I'm pretty sure I've been like 1.9 million, 1.95 million, and 2.1 million. So the way I play, I think it's very conservative. And like, that's why like there's very few players over 50% I don't own at any given time. And I rely on just literally 2 or 3 differentials to, if they don't do well, I just stay at the same rank. But equally, I never really get hurt. Is that a weird way to play?
Is that a conscious thing for you, or is it just something where you just make the same decisions as everyone else, or are you trying to block off people in the template?
No, so I think it is. Some of it is because obviously, you like obviously the masses go somewhere because there's an opportunity. But a lot of people hate template. They hate following the masses and stuff. But I've always treated FPL like I'm not. I know this sounds terrible to say, but there's been debates this week about whether you should play suboptimally to win versus not. Right, like the Wire guys did the pod with Trout, and that was awesome. And so
Definitely recommend that, by the way.
yeah, if you've not listened to that, guys, definitely check out the Wire episode with Prass and FF Trout. Really fascinating stuff for anyone who is skeptical about analytics or doesn't quite know how it works under the hood. It's just one way of many ways of playing. So for me, this is the weird thing, right? Because Simon, I'd like to think there are many times when I am an analytic manager, and yet I find very often whatever review thinks should be the ideal moves. Like for me, it would have told me to do like Poro to Robertson or something, and some other change somewhere else. And like it wouldn't have been to tell me to get Salah in, right? It wouldn't have told me Isaac. So none of those would have been recommended. And I always look at that and I'm like, yeah, I kind of see where the model's going, but I'm gonna go against it. And I want to follow the group because I play FPL, like I was saying, like poker. So in my mind, like I just need to beat the other managers. I don't need to get the most points. Now, someone who's trying to win FPL plays very differently to that. But I feel like I'm in this weird ground where I'm a social pariah because I don't play like the analytics guys with review fully because I like ignore it to follow the masses and the knee jerks for the ownership. And then equally on the flip side, I also have a super template team, which the people who are anti-review don't want to have. So it's like I'm stuck in the middle as like this guy in limbo who's not quite either of these groups, which is why I thought I'd bring it up, so just to see what you think.
Yeah, it's kind of a funny thing. I think if you really like commit to playing analytically and you follow a lot of review suggestions, you'll end up pretty far away from the template at quite a lot of like points. Just because there's some moves which it suggests, and then you go like, that's bad shit. And then 3 weeks later you're like, damn, I wish I had that team. So which is kind of what you were saying with your Game Week 1 team with all the cheapies alongside Haaland. And then I'm more on the side of you want to try to get your team to be more different, not more the same. If I have to like push it in a direction, like reason being is if you think about it mathematically, then if you take more risk, you're going to increase your chances of getting any rank where you have like under 50% of getting there, like on the upside and on the downside. So you're just going to you're going to widen your distribution of rank. And if I have a 50% chance of getting like a rank, like I'm not really that interested in trying to achieve it. Like it's kind of boring, whether that's like 20k or 10k or like 50k or whatever. I just want to try and get the highest rank possible, and so I'm always going to try and push my team to be like a bit different. If you can do that in a way where you're not really giving up much EV, again, this is another like a little part of why the kind of Salah draft edged ahead for me. Is it was pretty close on EV, but I knew that as a result of that, I'm going to end up with like 4 or 5 different players or 5, 6 different players when I'm choosing my optimal team compared to if you lock Haaland in, which like two-thirds of analytics managers are doing. So you've kind of like you've opened up like a lot of like natural risk without really like costing yourself EV. So like things like that I'll try and do. Like slightly weird and offbeat like wildcard timing can be another way when the plans are close, because again you end up on like 6, 7, 8 different players or whatever to the rest of the masses. I think it's about just buying yourself more roles against the field, because then you have a higher chance of reaching like the super lucky outcomes.
No, I like that. So one thing I want to say is I've looked at my live FPL clones as well. So this is the crazy thing, right? So I'm telling you that I'm very close to template at all times. I chase the high ownership players mostly. So the way I got into FPL content was in Corona 2020 lockdown. I started writing an article every week. It was transfer trends. I would look at, say, the top 5 most sold, top 5 most bought players and compare them and just say, like, oh, do I think everyone's right for selling Ivan Toney because he's blank for 5-6 weeks in a row and now buying the next darling who scored for 6 weeks in a row? And based on the data and my eye test and what I thought, I would hold on to a lot of players who were dropping in value because I was like, oh, this is appealing. Their ownership is so when I talk about ownership, I don't just mean I buy the high ownership ones. I will use it to also decide, like, I'm going to hold on to a player that's dropping in ownership because now I'm going to get more effective, like, points out of them essentially because less people own them. And I believe that the person they're going to buy and who's going to go up as a threat against me each week, higher EO each week that they're getting bought, isn't going to keep it up. Sometimes it's gone very wrong with the likes of Lingard, right? When they did keep returning and that these purple patches didn't end. It's even happened with Emi Martinez in goal. It's happened with Heung-min Son. It's happened to me in loads of positions where I've refused to buy the player and they're like at 50 to 100% every week, hurting me, every week giving me a red arrow. But they were the only one who could. So then when the other rest of my team was so template with those 2 or 3 differentials, even those weeks, I kind of just stay at the same rank. And then eventually one week that guy doesn't return, my random mass differential does, and boom, I fly past. So this is what I've been. So that'll just give context. And the reason I brought this up is that in live FPL, I would have thought I'd have more clones the way I play because of what we've just said about having pretty much like all the high owned players. But it says that in game week 3, I only had 3 clones in the top million.
And
I'm like,
I'm
and
on
this
5.
is
I thought I was going to have you there, man.
yeah, that's what I mean. So I don't know how, right? And I assume it will have gone up now by buying João Pedro and Salah with the millions of new owners. But there's always one random player in my team, like Muniz at 14% EO at my bracket, Gordon at 24%, Rogers, who everyone's talking about, he was only 20% last week. I played him over Smith Rowe, right? So even when I bought Smith Rowe as the signing to save the Nkunku money, just to save myself from the drop, I benched him even though I knew he'd have a higher ownership than Rogers and Muniz because I believed they would do better. None of them did anything, so it didn't matter. But yeah, that's what I was going to get at. Like, I do think still, even if you can have a template team, you can differentiate in a few positions that no one else is going for those assets. Because I don't know many players who have Salah, Haaland, Trent, and then Gordon. I don't think many will be going into gaming forward that because the people who, like me, will own Salah and Haaland potentially, maybe they've all wildcarded this week and got rid of a player like Gordon, whereas I'm using free transfers, so I don't have that luxury. So again, I try to choose my battles, and I do want to have a few players. In terms of my threats, I wanted to ask you this. So I was looking at my threats. So like I've also gone big against Arsenal defense, right? So their effective ownership, when you add up Raya 30%, Saliba 40%, Gabriel 40%, it's getting close to 100%. Palmer's 50%. I've been going against him all season. I'm still willing to go against him for some more time. Eze I've been going against. He's about 25%. Beyond that, Salah's the one that's being like 62%. And like, so you can see from my mind, I'm looking at that, right? And this is where I was going to explain how my thinking works. So I look at Saka. He's 44% EO at my bracket. I'm then seeing 500,000 people plus selling him. And then look at Salah. He's 62%. And I see like 1 million people buying him or whatever. And I'm like, so I mentally, and this is a hilarious thing, try to calculate before the game loads every week, how low is the player that I'm selling going? So if Saka's going low and I think, okay, he's going to go from 44 to 25, I'm now willing to take that on because I'm like, you know what? If he hauls, for me in my brain mentally, it's more a case of, oh no, what could have been? I missed the haul. I'm not thinking, oh shit, he gave me a red arrow because I'm like, well, he's low enough owned. So I'm always also trying to sell players at the time when I think they're not going to hurt me. So people be like, oh my God, how can you sell like Gordon this week? And I'm like, but bro, he's so low owned. Like I've sold players like even now, people be like, oh my God, you sold Muniz. And I'm like, he's 15%. Like if he gets 10 points, that's 1.5 points against me. If he gets 20 points, that's 3 points against me. It does not bother me. So this is what I mean. I don't know if that's another thing to ask you about, what you think about that. Because I think we've talked about this stuff before, but I don't know anyone else I know that like literally looks at like their prediction of EO going up and down based on transfers on the transfer trends. I love that. Like that for me is like my favorite thing in FPL.
Yeah, this is the part of FPL where you go full sicko, right? Like,
yeah,
trying to predict EO. Forget trying to predict points. Who needs that?
yeah, I don't care what the points are. I'm just predicting if the guy I sell drops enough, it won't hurt me. It's more a case of what could have been. So I wasn't patient enough to get the green arrow. Or I'm thinking the person I'm buying, how much are they going to punish me if I wait another week to buy them? So it's all like, that's literally the way I'm thinking. And I think that's part of why I end up maybe moving with the herd a lot of the time. Because if like Salah's, you know, in the situation, I think Liverpool have the best fixtures. They look better than I expected on the slot to start with. In my mind, I'm like, well, okay, like I kind of wanted him in game week 1 anyway. So like, what's wrong with going there with 2 home fixtures versus Saka's 2 away and Champions League in between away?
Yeah, I agree. Sometimes people are highly owned because it's obvious that they're a good pick, right? So
like Salah, right?
I think Salah in like this couple of weeks is that, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And so what would you do in my shoes now that I've got both? If like, because obviously, like some people I know, Andy Martin's on a wild card this week. I'm sure he's put out thousands of tweets saying if you're on wild card and you have Haaland, you're playing the game wrong or something along those lines. But if you do want to see his wild card, he's actually on Trophy Mo FPL Trophies channel at 9ish, so in about 10-20 minutes. What I'll do is I'll put a direct link in the chat. So if anyone wants to go over and tell them you've come from Expected Grass and you've raided them, that would be awesome. Obviously, if you just want to see like what Andy Martin's wild card looks like so far. And just to support Mo, he's just another fellow independent YouTuber who just enjoys FPL and he comes to all the meetups. He's a lovely guy. He's my Moroccan Habibi. So got to support him the same way that the Juice Boys have supported us many weeks and raided this channel and brought us loads of new subscribers. But yeah, it's just obviously we'd love to just support every other person in the community. I think that's our thing, right? Everyone's here to have a good time, chat FPL, make friends. Any other thoughts? So you have 5 clones, you said. So actually, that's interesting. You have 5, I have 3. We're both quite low. Do you think Henderson in goal is contributing to that? Because I also think that he's someone who I've not talked to you about today, and like his 4-pointer was basically a haul. Live FPL said it was failed, but I considered that a haul, a big success. What are your thoughts?
Henderson, yeah. I mean, he's fine. He's just a 4.5 keeper. I don't think there's that much between them. Like Flecken is decent. He's decent. Verbruggen is decent, but he blocks Brighton spot. Yeah, I don't really have like very deep thoughts on the 4.5 keepers. Obviously, I went Raya instead. So
yeah, so you do have the Arsenal defense in that case, and he'd been hoovering the bonus up. You were very unfortunate last week, I would suggest as well, because I think there was like 1 shot off target in the entire first half for the red card. So that is unfortunate for you. So just by the way, that wild card I was telling you about that might happen because I've used my 2 free transfers. And like I was like, you know, if shit goes wrong, I'm gonna just wild card and get my 2 free transfers back to keep rolling going forwards. I'm currently after hearing Alistair McKeever, thank you for tuning in, buddy, saying Konsa down. I looked over to my right and I see Ezra Konsa limping off a pitch with Maguire warming up. So keep an eye on that one. Because Lewis Hall and Marco are the subs for him. Jesus Christ.
But there we go. That's why you got the wild card on the pocket. And that kind of contributes a little bit to the wild card value as well, is that every week that you have it, you can make early transfers and not stress, as long as you're happy to actually play it in that week. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, right?
Salam, he's up. Let's see.
Yeah, let's see if he subs off or not. He's limping for sure. Not as bad as Odegaard was limping, which is that's a whole nother story. But Jesus, that's going to be an interesting North London derby. I'm still confident, but it is kind of ironic that the entire first choice midfield 3 of the new signing of Marino, Odegaard, and Rice won't be there. So I'm interested to see if we try something new.
I guess for FPL implications, there's maybe a little bit for this week. Maybe Havertz plays in midfield.
I have been thinking about that. There's a world in which you kind of see maybe a Jorginho party Havertz midfield, and it seems Jesus is ready for the North London derby, so could see him playing up top. And
yeah, or Sterling on the left, Trossard.
Yeah, there's talks of Sterling starting. I'm not sure if he would start straight away, but he could. There's talks of throwing in the 17-year-old Ethan Nwaneri. I'm not sure about that one either, but I think there's more options than people realize. And in some ways, with 3 away games in a row, including the Champions League, I'd like to think that we'll try something different and maybe we learn something new that we didn't know, or, you know, maybe someone, because prior times when these kind of things happened, right, like there was injuries that kind of forced Arteta's hand to play all the Hale End boys in the first place that kind of started the recovery of these last 4 or 5 years with Smith Rowe and Saka and those guys, they weren't necessarily putting the 11 out of choice. I remember Willian playing week in, week out. So yeah, God, thank God those days are over. Yeah, let's just hope Havertz doesn't also get injured and Saka doesn't get injured because they both have another 45 minutes to go. So then I'll be starting to get worried for the North London derby.
That makes a lot of sense.
Let's look at your team then. So we talked about mine. I've moved to a double premium. You've kept Saka and Isaac instead of, I guess, my Haaland and Rogers. I
Yeah,
guess.
pretty much. And I've got Bruno Fernandes as well.
Okay, so yeah, you've got actually you've got a. Well, I guess I have Jota for your Bruno. I'd argue that they're not that far apart.
Yeah, I mean,
well, maybe stats wise, like Bruno looks great.
No.
Incredible break, but he's just something's not clicking. I don't know. Like he should have a return by now. It's a bit ridiculous. So I imagine you're not worried, right? You're just gonna hold. Like you have no concerns with him.
Yeah, I have no concerns with Bruno.
Cool.
I would probably pick Bruno Fernandes if I was on wildcard this week.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, I have him in my other formats, right? So like fan team, I have him. I've not done anything with him. I've just got him, and I'm just gonna keep him because it's a 90-minute man. Like that's what I need.
So this is the fun one. I'm just going to stick it on the screen from Alistair McKeever because I was chatting with him on the Discord. Actually, this is what he's referencing. So he is less of a Bruno Fernandes believer, but while I have the floor and he's not on the podcast to reply, I'm going to drop some Bruno prop. So this is the guy who over like multiple seasons pretty much has like gets you around like in the region of like 20 returns a year, like sometimes a little over, sometimes a little under. He's like nailed as hell. He never gets dropped. He very rarely gets injured. He's played like over 90% of the minutes in all of the last 4 seasons. He gets you like 0.2-ish, maybe a little over. Like expected goals and like 0.3, maybe a little over expected assists plus penalties for 8.5 million. And you can just leave him in your team. He just collects points over the long term, and he never ever really becomes a fire. Like he's not going to get dropped. It's unlikely he's going to get injured. Obviously, anyone can get injured, but the chance of him getting injured is less than a lot of other players. And so you very rarely need to use a free transfer on him. And he just seems like such an easy guy to just like leave in there, and only in like kind of exceptional circumstances where you actually need to move him on. So he's just gonna.
So he's the lock. Like there's like unless like he gets injured, like or he starts playing centre back or something, like you're unlikely to even think about him. And is there anyone in your team that you are watching? Because I look at this team and I don't see who could even be close to a chopping block. So I can kind of see why you're still rolling. Like
yeah. So just for the audio guys, team is Raya and Bentley are the keepers. Gabriel, Trent, Dunk, Porro, and Feis as the defenders. Saka, Fernandes, Eze, Salah, and Minter as the mids, and then Pedro, Isaac, and Muniz as the strikers. Yeah, there's players that I will want to move on, but not yet. So after 6, I'll probably look at trying to move Salah and Minter on to get who is it? Palmer and Mbomo probably is the move I'm looking at.
I like that. 2 talismans.
Yeah, Mbomo looks like a really nice pick, and obviously Brentford's fixtures come really good from 6, but he's also nailed with penalties, 7 million, like easy guy to just like drop in your team and not really move for a while. Minter has really nice fixtures in 4 and 5, but Brighton's 6 to 11 is pretty stinky. And then Salah's obviously drops off a little on the fixtures, whereas like Palmer looks decent and it enables to move up. So that's kind of like the only moves I have really thinking about for the next like 3 weeks. I think it could need quite a lot of surgery from 7 to 9. Haaland in 9 is definitely something I've got my eyes on.
Triple captain. I heard you talking to Fran, right? About how like obviously you said maybe you rubbished it.
I did rubbish it. I definitely did rubbish it.
In game week 3 was it, or game week 2? I think game week 2 wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. That one didn't go so well for my credibility, but whatever. That's not the first time. And then, yeah, like after 7, like City get nice. So I probably want to try and get a City defender in. Isak could become someone like Jackson or Solanke. And then, yeah, Haaland, like I said, in 9 is the really tricky one because it's simultaneously he has Southampton at home, and then I think Salah has Arsenal away. So yeah, and Palmer I think is like probably the next best captain, but I don't know. Haaland Southampton at home with like no good fixture for Salah is just seems like a bit of a nightmare to go against, just on the expected value and any kind of semblance of logic. So
I
I'm
still think
thinking,
Chelsea. I do think Chelsea will get top 4 personally. I think there's too many talented players that they can't eventually figure it out. But we'll see because there's also all the crap going on now with the ownership fighting. So that was news to me.
yeah, that's bizarre, isn't it? I think the Haaland thing could necessitate a wild card, either wild card in 9 to get him in and build up transfers before to transfer him straight out, or transfer him in 9 with free transfers, and then wild card in 10 to get him out. But either
You
way,
only want him for that week, right? Like
yeah,
you don't want to
maybe
spend 15 million plus like long term.
maybe 7 or 8,
Okay.
depending like what kind of things happen to my team. But yeah, after 10, I probably want to be jumping off because I just think there's better. Like you're gonna have a team that's closer to like what I like think of as the value frontier. So it's like the whole team is what gets you points, not just Haaland, and locking up that 15 million in the forward spot. In most circumstances, seems like it's a lower value position to be in unless you have like particular fixtures for the captaincy value.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. Especially if you're going to triple captain in game week 9 potentially, then I can see why you'd do
Yeah,
that. It
I
is an
probably won't do
interesting
that, to be
thought,
honest.
though, isn't it? But it's an interesting thought. This idea of do you use transfers to bring the player in and wildcard out, or do you actually just roll transfers that you wildcard him in, but then you have the transfers to get rid of?
Yeah, I don't know. I'll need to look at like how the other pieces move really, and who else has got which fixtures, and work out which looks like a better path. But
How about captaincy?
definitely,
I'm assuming this week is obviously you're on Salah. I've now given myself the headache of obviously I don't really know what to do between Salah and Haaland. I have both, and I kind of feel like they're both home fixtures, right? I'm just having they're both home fixtures. Brentford have been a bit tricky for City in the past, but I don't know if losing Tony has like a massive impact. So I don't know if Mbeumo and Wissa and Shada can like give the same trouble. I do think Ivan Tony's a pretty serious guy. He's
yeah, I
about to
think
become
we had half a season without Tony last year, though, right?
yeah, but then it's just like this City team, something like forget this City team, this Haaland this year, this guy himself. So he just looks fitter. Like I don't know, like obviously he just seems more confident as well. So I don't know. There's something in that. There has been a change in system, right? So again, that's something I'm unsure of. Like, where does Foden fit in? Because if I was gonna like wildcard 6 and we'd started to see Foden get back in or somewhere into this lineup, I'd see good value there.
Yeah, especially now it's 9.3 or something. He's dropped a
Yeah, but
lot.
then the thing is, like, where does he play? Because I almost feel like, is it him or De Bruyne? Is it that like Pep doesn't want two of them in the midfield?
Yeah, I
Like,
guess we don't know, right? We don't know if the system that he's playing now is just a solution to not having Rodri or Foden, or if it's the solution and then he's going to try and fit Rodri and Foden in. And right now, we don't know which way around that is.
so
I
I guess
guess
I have a few more weeks to see, right, before I make any rash decisions.
yeah, you got a couple of weeks, but one of those fixes is going to be against Arsenal. So then it's kind of like,
How
will he
much
do
do you
something
learn?
special there? And then he's also rolled out some pretty odd stuff against Brentford specifically as well, because they
Mm.
played 3 at the back against. So you will get 2 more games. But I think you're gonna have not an easy time reading into those 2 games because they're 2 opponents where Pep has done like particularly odd things against previously. And so trying to know like what the kind of long-term trend is from those 2 is difficult.
Sorry, I just I realized that Trophy did go live with Andy's wildcard team, but they're just right at the beginning saying the formalities.
Should we do
We've
some
also
Q&A and wrap it up then?
Yeah, I was gonna say let's do Q&A and get out, and we'll direct everyone to Trophy's channel so that he can everyone can see what Andy Martin's up to as well, and say hi to them. Say the boys at Expected Grass sent you. We'd appreciate that. So Kyle Abdullah Jamil's question is, who do you think I should start, Anderson or I guess that's the 4 million Villa defender? I would start Anderson from Fulham, right?
I was going to get the opposite, because the Needle should play this week, right?
Yeah, like I guess my question is, why didn't he play last week? Because that's the last I heard about it, was that he didn't start, and everyone was like, "Oh, damn."
Yeah, that's fair. I haven't really looked at that closely. If you think he's going to start, though, I think the Villa fixture is pretty nice.
Yeah. I think I would look at like some predicted lineups for Villa closer to lineup, see what happens with Konsa as well, with obviously the injury or the sub and what impact that has. Let's see what other comments we have in here as we keep going. So we shouted out Rico. So Tiggy Taylor, I have 2 free transfers. I plan to roll. If I sell Zinchenko at 4.9, I can only go to a 4.5 million. Game week 5, I can downgrade Bruno Fernandes and upgrade my defender while keeping 1 free transfer. Maybe Zinchenko starts and I don't have to play Greaves. So I guess this week, the idea is like, if you roll, so you have free transfers next week, then there's a risk where, like, obviously if Zinchenko doesn't start, he'll probably cameo, so he will block Greaves. And therefore, unless you're sure he will start, and we won't know because it's a late game on a Sunday, it's 2 p.m. kickoff, so like there's no chance of knowing if Zinchenko is going to start by the deadline on Saturday. You're going to probably panic unless you see like loads of people predict Zinchenko to start, and you're probably going to end up playing Greaves. So I would probably make that bet as it is. There was some talk of like people were going with wild lineups, Simon. They were like saying, like Calafiori is going to play left back, Timber's going to play in the pivot next to Partey. I've seen all kinds of wild lineups. Like, I would say just get to Friday and see what the hive mind thinks on Emma. Jump the Wave on Twitter. She does the predicted lineups from the fan bases of each team. See how many people think Zinchenko is going to start. Maybe Arteta says something in the presser that's promising. But yeah, I think I would just play Greaves and roll. I don't think downgrading Zinchenko to a 4.5 has enough upside in this immediate 1 week that you're going to do it, compared to having that power next week to make big wholesale changes and actually get a defender you want. Now, let us know what 4.5 defender you would get. So I guess the alternative devil's advocate is like, what 4.5 defender or what sub 4.9 defender would you be looking to buy? That's
I think if Zinchenko isn't going to start, he could probably find a 4.5 that has decent value this week, unless you already have both. Well, maybe
I think
not.
if you have them, right? So if you already have like
well, it's Konsa and Dunk. Maybe not if Konsa's injured, but those two have really nice fixtures this week that you could get decent value out of this week. And if you're in Game Week 5, if you're looking at kind of just doing a 2 free transfer move anyway, then you
kind of have the 2 free transfers next week anyway, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So maybe. Okay, let's see what else we're thinking. So Andy Mack, evening. Thank you for tuning in, buddy. So Andy Mack won FPL back in the day.
Nice.
Pre the ranking history. So I think the ranking history goes back to 2004.
Great.
He won it before there's a ranking history. That's crazy, right?
It's horrendous. You never get the 1 on your page.
That's such a piss take as well, because he genuinely did win. I remember questioning the credibility. Then I found out he was Mark Southern's landlord for a while Mark Southern's lived in his basement.
This is a story right here.
Yeah. So I think that maybe we need to bring Andy on the channel and continue that discussion. But Alistair McKeever, outcome variability for the win. Thank you for tuning in. Louis Bonilla, good to see you, mate. Tuning in from USA. Thank you for all the support, buddy. You've been a legend last few weeks. Lewis's question is, bench one of Mbuemo, Armstrong, or Muniz? Thank you so much. I hate to say it, but it's Armstrong for me. I have to just bench the player from the worst team. For
minutes are most uncertain as well.
And minutes.
And Mbuemo's fixture is bad. City, right?
It is bad. Yeah, I guess
If you
It's a coin flip between those two. I don't think. Yeah, it's a coin. I wouldn't be benching Muniz. Maybe that's just biased because I'm playing him, and I think this is
neither,
when he
not
finally
over
gets the
those
ball.
two.
Not over those two. If there was someone else, maybe I would bench.
Yeah, and I am benching Muniz actually, but
Yeah, you are. Yeah. Colm says, don't forget to hit the like, people. Yeah, that would be amazing if you can support the channel. I think that's the first time we've asked for a like all episode. Sam, hello, friends. So we were talking about the new talismans you're going to have. And now I found out that it might actually be talismen. It could be talis fellows. Alistair says talis people. Martin Heeden, good to see you. Talismandem. I think that's my
Talisman Dem
favorite
I
one.
like.
I like that one. So Colm's question, is it worth selling Havertz this game week as he will more likely be playing further back or hold for the good run coming back? Coming up. Who would you sell him for, Colm, is my question. I don't think I would be selling personally. I think wherever he plays, even if it's as like a left eight, he's going to run into the box and get opportunities. I think he's going to do that regardless. I don't have too many concerns about whether he's playing a striker or left center mid. Like wherever he's playing, I expect him to score. He currently in 2024 has like a disgusting number of goal contributions. He's become a vice captain, I believe, of Germany as well. Like everyone's going crazy over him. Like he's changed as a player since that move from that very toxic environment. So for me, maybe I'm biased as a Guna, so I'll let Simon give a less biased take, but I would just keep him unless like who you're buying is truly going to have like better expected value in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. So I think it depends a bit on your kind of transfer situation and wildcard and what the rest of your team looks like. I think the who are you selling Havertz for is a good question. There's not a lot of options that like jump out to me as like, yeah, I really, really want them. Jackson's fixtures are a bit iffy. Solanke is injured.
I think if Solanke wasn't injured, you could think about it, but I don't really like selling a player to buy a player from the same match that week. Like I always think like I'll just roll the dice with the one I have and then maybe next week make that
Solanke you
move.
can just go 5 anyway. It's an easy fixture for him and tricky for Arsenal. I do think it matters where he plays though. I think he's a lot better FPL asset when he's playing at 9 than he is playing as the left centre mid. And you're right about the like insane number of goal contributions, but that's been him playing a striker, right?
It is true, but even like in the preseason, and I think before Jesus got injured and now he's back, I do think that when Jesus is the striker, it's very different to when Eddie Nketiah is the striker. So the data we have from last season is Eddie is a striker with Havertz as a left centre mid, and I don't think that's comparable to someone like Jesus who will drop deep naturally, and that's like something he likes to do, and will leave that space for Havertz to go into. So I think personally, like that's just the one difference that I'd like to think would give me an edge as someone who like goes to the Emirates, has a season ticket, watches games. Like I'd like to think Jesus up top, or like even like a Trossard false 9 or Sterling, whoever it's going to be. I'd like to think with Havertz at left centre mid, it's a whole different proposition to Eddie Nketiah as striker. That's just one thing that I don't think data could show, because obviously the structure and system is different with Eddie as striker versus Jesus, and that's just that one small thing that gives me that nagging doubt. It's like I just think if Jesus is the one playing up top, I think Havertz is basically going to be playing striker anyway in possession, and out of possession, he's going to do defensive work. That's the way I see it. I could be wrong. Come and shout at me if I am, Colm, but we'll go, in the interest of time, we'll go much more quickly from here. Just a few quick fire ones. One from Andy Mack. Q&A question. Which one would you bench out of Concert, Robinson, and Mbuemo this week? Cheers, chaps.
Robinson.
I can't bench Mbuemo. I can't. I see people benching like Son, Saka, Salah over the last few years. I'm sorry, I can't get on board with that. Like I just can't. I can't bench a penalty taking out of position striker playing in midfield and FPL for any 4.5 defender. Maybe that's a flaw in the way I think, but I just can't, because the way I look at it, Andy, and I don't know if you agree, is I ask myself, what is going to ruin my weekend more? If Robinson gets 9 points on my bench or Constance gets 9 points on my bench, which they probably won't, but let's say they got a clean sheet and they got 6 points, or an assist with no clean sheet and 5 points. and my defender I start instead of them got 2 points, I'd be like, okay, I lost 4 to 6 points on a defender. Who cares? If Mbeumo hold on my bench, I will be livid. I will be fuming. So for my own mental health reasons, I would rather bench the player that's going to piss me off the least if they haul. And Mbeumo would piss me off the most in those three.
This is a lot of how you play FPL, isn't it? Yeah, I know the same thing coming through with the ownership and the transfers, right? You were just like, yeah. So like, if this happens, I'm going to be most upset if this happens. So I'm going to make my transfers like anticipating that. That's jokes.
It's quite funny, isn't it? It is interesting how our play styles can differ so much. So Colm says, I'd love Anderson to start. I think Silva will play Diop until he makes a big mistake. Okay, that's fair. So maybe it is better to play the Villa defender if you think, yeah, fair enough. I think we've answered Lewis's question. Mooney's answering Mbeumo. So Tiggy has Trent and Robinson. So this is the plan for the Zinchenko sale. You have Trent and Robinson.
Yeah, so I would do Zinchenko to dunk or something.
Yeah, I think if you're up for the Brighton defense, I like the next two fixtures.
You prefer Villa, like I think owning a 4.9 million Zinchenko is bad, and owning like a good 4.5 million defender is good. So you'd be turning like a bad piece into a good piece. I don't think that's like a bad use.
I guess the question is like, would the money from downgrading Bruno next week get you a defender that's over 5 million that you think is worth that move for? Because I don't.
Yeah, I also,
I don't think there is.
You know,
like
my feelings on Bruno, selling Bruno as well.
Yeah, so you wouldn't even want to sell him. Okay, fine.
I just go Zinchenko to dunk and just keep rolling.
So Louis asks, is Veltman nailed and is he injured? So I can't say I know much about that. I'll look into it before my episode of Locked in FPL tomorrow.
I don't think he's nailed.
He's not. No, I don't think he's nailed, but I don't know about injury either.
Well, it depends. It also depends on your time horizon, because Kadioglu, who came in, can play left or right, and so he could be a threat to either Estupiñán or Veltman.
And there's Hinshaw, and there's all kinds of. Just Brighton's team is so stacked. It's crazy. Lamptey, man, my guy Lamptey. I'm a big lover of Brighton fullbacks. I always have both, and I play the wrong one. And the one that I played last year would be the one that didn't return. So I'd play like Lamptey, and then like Estupiñán gets points. I play Estupiñán, Lamptey gets points. It was just, and then do you know what I did from there, bro? I then moved to double Bournemouth defense for their double game week in Zabani and Kirkez, and I kept doing the same shit with them of playing in the wrong one each week. So when Kirkez gets a assist, he's on my bench, whereas Zabani gets a start and Kirkez doesn't. I've started that fucking.
Yeah, dodging points, my friend. Yeah, dodging
I just love this shit. I just love. I'm a glutton for punishment. Colm says I love this quick fire. Okay, we were gonna get out of here. So Andy says my thoughts too. Thank you guys. And yeah, I think if Constance Croc, that makes your decision for you. This one's for you, and it's non-FPL related. I like to always leave with a non-FPL related question, so we will take this one from our good friend Jasper and Singh and get out of here. What would be your preferred Leeds front four?
It would be Joseph up front. I think that's pretty uncontroversial. Nonto on the right, Aronson at 10, and Solomon on the left. I think it's pretty close though. There's lots of variations you could pick. You could put Ramazani on the left. You could put Nonto at 10 and play like James, or the other one of well, you play Ramazani on the right, not Solomon. So there's a lot of ways you can kind of tweak it around. I think I'd play the same front four as Farker rolled out last game. I don't really see any reason to change it right now. Again, it kind of goes to what I was saying earlier about like, we have maybe six players for this front four that would start for pretty much any other championship team, which is pretty nice.
Like that. Just to give a few updates, it looks like Aki has got badly injured for the Netherlands. England is 2-0 up. Kane brace. Trent and Madueke assists. Saka off on 66 minutes. Yes, rest up for the North London derby. And Anthony Gordon off in 66 minutes. Rest up, my brothers. Rest up. 2 of my players survived injury-free. I'm so proud. All right. Thank you, everyone. I'm putting a link in the chat to Trophy FPL's channel with his Andy Martin live stream talking about Andy's wildcard. Do go raid them after if you're around and let them know we sent you from from Expected Grass. And yeah, if you like today's show, there's been 1,600 people, including X, I think mainly X.
Insane,
So
man.
please do subscribe. It's crazy numbers. Please do come and consider subscribing on the actual YouTube channel itself as well. And yeah, we'll see you guys next Tuesday when we're back for the next episode, for the Game Week 5 episode of Expected Grass. And yeah, it's been awesome. Nice to be back after a few weeks, Simon. It's a pleasure to see you as always. And I'm hoping my Salah purchase and him shushing people on the thumbnail will be a big success for me and my team. And I hope my clone number doesn't go up too much after my very sheepish moves.
Yeah, let's see next week. Let's see.
Cheers, man. It was everyone who tuned in the live chat and interacted. We love you guys. Thank you for all your support and see you next week. Peace. Bye.